go to show you what we're talking about here, give you a little better perspective as we zoom out and give you an idea of that storm cell. And again, it is a large area of showers and storms. We were just watching it, just talking about it a second ago, about how this storm system has a lot of rotation with it, has a lot of activity with it, and we've been tracking it as this has been one of those storms that over the last really 30 minutes or so we've been watching as we put this into motion for you to show you what we're talking about with this storm as it moves out of Georgia into Abbeville County. And again, the big concern with this has been the fact that this has moved into areas that have been very warm throughout the afternoon. We're getting a little bit of that break, and we're seeing storms that are in an area that we've been talking about with temperatures right around 70 degrees. And that's warm enough to support the lift, the instability that unfortunately you can get when you're talking about tornadoes or rapidly turning systems. There we are in Calhoun Falls, and to give you an idea of what we're talking about with this storm, what they're watching and what we have been watching with this, and it's this area on the southern end of that right near Calhoun Falls where you have that gate-to-gate shear. What we're talking about is the winds heading towards the radar and away from the radar. Of course, our radar is at GSP, and these are the things that we're looking at. Look at the red area here of 17-mile-an-hour winds, and those are 37-mile-an-hour winds moving away towards the storm. On the green, away from the storm, away from that storm center, I should say, the radar center. At GSP. So what you're seeing right here in this area, this is where we're dealing with the rotation right around Calhoun Falls, just to the east of Calhoun Falls, to give you a little perspective of what we're talking about. And this is what we're concerned about and have been tracking as far as the potential for a storm system to create some heavy downpours and a lot of rain. You're watching us in Hester. All of this is included in the area, just to give you an idea, just to the south of Latimer towards Watts, to give you a little more perspective of where we're talking about with the storm system, and you can see just how heavy that line of showers is. We want to take a quick look at how fast the winds are around that storm and with that storm in particular near Calhoun Falls as that updates. Again, 13-mile-an-hour winds, 31-mile-an-hour winds moving away from the storm. But within that storm, look at these stronger winds of about 37 miles an hour, to clear that out for you, to give you an idea. About a 37-mile-an-hour wind at Calhoun Falls, just to the north and east of that. So again, if you're traveling along from anywhere near Calhoun Falls, make sure you're checking in on folks to make them aware that if you're watching us and you're in this area, you want to be going to the lowest floor of your home, an interior room, away from windows, away from doors, because this is the situation where with strong gusty winds, tree limbs can come down, things can be pushed into the house, or even really limbs falling off of trees. So that's a big issue when we're talking about strong gusty winds. And again, this has been a storm that has packed quite a bit of a punch. And we've been talking about the fact that this storm not only has the potential to be a tornado, as we were talking about, as we have right now, but at the very least, you put in all these lightning strikes, and there's a massive number of strikes in a short amount of time moving out of Calhoun Falls. It's a very loud system. It's producing a lot of heavy rain in a short amount of time. So if you're watching us anywhere in Abbeville County or even in Greenwood County, to give you a little better perspective, we want you to make sure that you're being extremely safe, that you're moving inside. And this is part of a system that's moving again out of Georgia, filling in with some very strong gusty winds at this time. So we want to watch this throughout the day and throughout the early evening hours. As we mentioned that potential to see some strong thunderstorms, we mentioned the potential for severe weather. This is what we're talking about, because what you get is you get these individual cells that spin up. Again, this is not associated with any of the other rain that we've seen. Again, we got that first line of showers that moved out earlier this afternoon and through the early evening with areas of rain in Asheville and Hendersonville, even in parts of the upstate Greenville and Spartanburg. But now as we're tracking this line, this one area near Abbeville as it closes in, near Greenwood, just to the north of Greenwood. And again, you want to be aware of the fact that this is a line of thunderstorms that we have been watching and tracking over the last hour or so. To put it in pause for you just a second and give you an idea of what we're talking about, where the most active line of this thunderstorm or thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is located. It's right over Calhoun Falls. Again, a known area moving out of Abbeville. If you're heading in Abbeville or if you live in Abbeville, you want to be aware of that. Also towards due west, you're also in the path of this storm as well. As we put a line on the storm to show you where it is right now and where it's expected to go. That center of circulation is just to the north of Abbeville, and as this storm system is moving at about 20 miles an hour, it should continue to move to the north, and again in Abbeville at about right now moving through Abbeville County just to the east of Calhoun Falls to give you a little better perspective of what we're talking about. But if you're watching us in Abbeville, say Hodges, due west, be aware that there's a strong thunderstorm just on your doorstep. So you probably hear the rumbles of thunder, you probably see the flashes of lightning, and that's going to really be an issue through the early evening hours as we're talking about. This is the leading edge of a much larger, longer system of rain and storms, just fueling those storms coming in out of Georgia. And this is what we're tracking as we give you a little bit of a better line of this all the way down to Augusta as that line stretches out. So again, we're watching this. The hope is that it weakens a little bit as it moves into more stable air because again, ahead of this, we have been talking about cloud cover in most spots in the upstate. In Greenville and Spartanburg, Lawrence County, Anderson County, all of those areas have been kind of inundated with the clouds. It shows you those thick layers of clouds across the region. But unfortunately, this is one of those areas that we got a little bit of sunlight. And as we were talking about, anytime you have that kind of instability in the atmosphere, you have that lift, you have that potential to see some storms really kind of take hold. So again, we're watching this area right here in Abbeville County, kind of the northwest corner of Abbeville County, as a tornado warning that has been issued that goes until 8 o'clock tonight. So if you're watching us in these areas, please be aware of that. And again, as we put a little bit of a vorticity on this to show you what we're talking about with the storm system, how fast it's moving, where it's moving to, and what it is producing as far as winds, here's the good news. It's starting to show a little bit of weakening, which is fantastic. We like to see that. But we're still talking about a storm that is capable of producing some strong, gusty winds. You're not seeing as much of that gate to gate, that green and red together. That's a good news because anytime those are close together, that means that there's wind moving in opposite direction. But what we're seeing with this storm near Calhoun Falls, still gusty winds of 27 miles an hour. And again, the vorticity 11 miles away from that. So it's starting to weaken just a little bit, but that still means strong gusty winds that can cause damage, probably producing hail at this point, and also a lot of lightning as we looked at that storm system a little bit earlier. And again, continuing to move at about 35 miles an hour. It's a fast-moving storm system, but it's also a storm system that's producing quite a bit of lightning and quite a bit of heavy rainfall at this time. So we want you to be aware of that to give you an idea of what we're talking about. If you missed it at the very top of the half hour, we are under a tornado warning for Abbeville County, includes areas of Calhoun Falls. If you're watching us in Watts or Warren, those areas north of Hester, heading to the north. This storm is moving at a pretty good pace at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. So we're watching this storm as it continues to track to the north. Loudonsville, as you see there, and again, towards due west. If you're watching us in any of these areas in this cone, this goes until 8 o'clock tonight. And again, this storm system is moving to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour and producing some heavy rain, some heavy downpours, and again, quite a bit of lightning with it as well. Let's put this into motion for you just one more time to give you an idea of what we're talking about and what we're looking at with the storm system, because what I want you to see is that this is a storm that's moving in out of Georgia. It's very humid, very hot in the Georgia area, and in parts of Georgia, as we mentioned earlier in the show, there was an earlier tornado warning in Aiken where they had some damage early this morning. This is that second line of a system that's a much larger system moving across the deep south. And for us, this continues to be an issue. So we want to watch this closely as we're watching it from moving out of Georgia, moving into Abbeville County. Anderson, I want you to be aware of that. Hartsville as well, Hartsville, I should say, or Hartwell, I should say, is where we're seeing some of those showers and storms as well at this time. So we want to watch this closely as we put it into motion for you and give you an idea of what we're looking at. Let's take a look, if we can, at the storm system, because again, as we're watching the storm, we want to give you an idea of what it is that we're seeing with this storm, what it's producing, and again, how strong the storm happens to be at this time. Again, one of the things we look out for, we want to know, is it producing hail? Is it producing heavy downpours and things like that, or dangerous lightning? Those are all issues. And as we take a look at this storm, we have the ability to actually dissect it. So we're going to cut it just across the center and give you an idea of where the storm is, where we are with heights of the storm. And what we're looking for with those heights over 30,000 feet, that means we have a lot of uplift. We have a lot of updraft with these storms that are going high, and they're producing some heavy downpours, possibly even producing some hail as that gets updated as we go through. So we want to watch this closely. Again, if you're watching us in Calhoun Falls, this is a storm that's right on your doorstep, just a little bit to the east of Calhoun Falls, just a little bit outside of the city. So again, be aware of that, the fact that we are on that tornado watch and warning, I should say, until 8 o'clock tonight, until the top of the hour, until this is allowed to expire. But right now, we're looking at a storm that is producing some strong gusty winds, heavy downpours. In addition to that, this is a storm that's producing quite a bit of lightning in a short amount of time. So again, we put this into effect, start to run it forward for you and show you, as we also put in the lightning strikes there, that this is a storm that has gathered energy as it's moving out of Georgia, moving into Abbeville County. And again, a very strong storm, a very active storm at this point that's producing some heavy downpours, some strong gusty winds as the storm continues to move from Calhoun Falls through Beulah out of Georgia into parts of Abbeville County, just north of Greenwood. You see Greenwood right here. Here's Abbeville. And again, this storm, as it continues to move to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. And again, we're getting updates from our radar at GSP of a storm system that is producing quite a bit of heavy rain, heavy downpours, and strong gusty winds. Again, give you an idea of what we're talking about with the storm itself as we take the monitor off there for just to see, and we put some markers on here for you. How strong are these winds? 21 mile an hour winds moving away from the radar, 27 mile an hour winds moving towards the radar. So again, we have these strong winds working their way through parts of Abbeville, and we want to watch this very closely because this is where we're most likely to see some damage. Loudonsville, down towards Latimer, over towards Warren, and again, all of these are in parts of Abbeville County as the storm continues to track to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. We've zoomed in a little bit close for you just to give you a better concept of what we're talking about in Abbeville County and where this storm continues to come down. And again, I want to pay close attention to the fact that this area that you're seeing here, and I want to highlight it for you, near Warrington, you're starting to see a little bit of that red and green close together. These are storm cells and winds moving towards the radar. These are winds that are moving away from the radar. And typically what you will see if you get that type of setup is that's where you're going to see that rotation in the atmosphere. That's where these storms are going to be the strongest. So if you're watching us in Watts or Warren, please be very careful. This is the time to head indoors. This is the time to find that emergency room, that indoor shelter, that interior room away from windows and away from doors, because again, flying objects in this kind of weather can really cause a lot of damage. As we talk about trees being pushed down, we talk about debris being thrown around, lawn furniture, anything like that may actually be an issue as well. So please make sure that you are taking heed to these storms as we are showing you them. Let's give you one more perspective, give you a little wider perspective of what we're talking about as we have a tornado warning that has been issued. It's for Abbeville County. It's moving towards the north at about 30 miles an hour. And this is a storm that, again, has produced some heavy, gusty winds, strong, damaging winds. We haven't had any reports as of yet. We're not hearing anything yet, but this is what we've been talking about throughout the day. Anytime you have so much instability, and then you get that little bit of a break in the atmosphere, you get a little sunlight, a little bit of daylight, and again, we have another half an hour or so before the sun goes down, or 45 minutes, I should say. So unfortunately, these are warm, humid air masses that are moving in out of the south, moving into a lot of instability. That gives you a lift, that gives you that rotation with these storms. So that's what we're dealing with. We're also paying close attention to the line of showers, not just that tornado, but also strong thunderstorms heading towards Toccoa. Those are a little bit weaker, which is great news. We like to see that as the air is a little more stable ahead of this, but this is all rotating into an atmosphere that is very humid, that is very hot, and again, has a lot of instability. So again, this goes until 8 o'clock tonight as we're tracking this line of showers and thunderstorms as they move into Abbeville County and parts of Abbeville, including Abbeville itself, Calhoun Falls, due west. All of these areas are in the path just to the north and really west of Abbeville. But this line, I think, is close enough that if I were watching in Abbeville, I would definitely be taking notice, because this You're probably hearing this. You probably look out your window. You can see those very dark clouds, a lot of lightning with this storm system. And again, as we watch this update, it's this line that's moving really just kind of to the east of Calhoun Falls that we want to watch very closely as we are under this tornado warning until the top of the hour, until 8 o'clock. So again, that is a big concern for us. Just south of Anderson County, as you can see us here, there you see Star, there you see Iva. Not considered as part of this warning, but again, close enough that you're going to see the effects of some of those strong gusty winds, some of those downdrafts, I should say, from the storm, those push-outs from the storm. Also up towards Hodges, we're getting some thunderstorm activity there as well. And all of this, again, moving to the north at about 35 miles an hour. So as we're tracking the storm system, this is something we want to be very cautious of and really pay close attention to, because not only are we talking a strong thunderstorm right now capable of producing a tornado, and we don't have any reports of a tornado on the ground, but we have seen some reports of circulation. So that's what they issued the tornado warning based on circulation. And again, this is a storm that continues to track to the north at about 35 miles an hour as it moves out of Georgia, warm, humid air, and it moves into parts of the Carolinas, moves into parts of Abbeville County, just to the north of Greenwood. And again, all of this activity moving to the north at about 35 miles an hour. So we want you to be very aware of that. And again, as we said, if you're watching us anywhere in Abbeville County, make sure that you're moving to an interior room, make sure you're moving to your safe spot, make sure you're moving to those interior rooms and getting away from windows and doors, because a lot of times as we're talking about these tornadoes, as we're talking about the winds, even if it's not a tornado, sometimes strong thunderstorms can have these strong gusty winds that can also bring down tree limbs, bring down furniture in the yard, patio furniture, things like that, and have flying debris. So you don't want to be out in this, and again, very dangerous on the roadways as well if you are out and about. So if you have family or friends that are out right now, make sure you're contacting them. Make sure they are aware that there is a very strong thunderstorm moving through Abbeville County, possibly a tornado with the storm as it moves through the region and moves through the area. Again, we want to give you an update of where that storm is, Calhoun Falls, as we zoom in a little bit closer and show you that this has been a very, very active line as it moves through Calhoun Falls. I think that is probably that center of circulation right there, as you can see, moving out of Hester, Latimer, moving towards Watts, Warrenton as well. These are the areas that we are most concerned about, because these are the most likely areas that this storm is producing some heavy downpours, strong gusty winds, as well as some heavy downpours and lightning. Again, giving an idea of where that storm is, what it's tracking, and what it looks like as we take our warning box off for just a second. And we are watching the reds and the greens. Again, we're watching the movement of the storm. Where's the storm going? How much is the storm producing as far as wind speeds and things like that? We have 10 miles an hour right there. Watts and Warring about 29 to 30. So again, gusty winds, those strong winds blowing in with the storm. We take a look within the storm. What do those winds look like? And again, those go up. As you can see, the wind of 36 miles an hour reported in that little pop-up spot right there that we mentioned, 35 mile an hour winds. Again, even if you're not talking circulation, and these are winds moving away from our radar, which basically the storm is moving to the north, these winds are moving to the south. So again, you're getting that rotation, you're getting that turning in the atmosphere. The good news is that we don't have a lot of gate-to-gate shear, meaning we don't have a lot of greens and reds right beside each other, but these are strong winds. And again, the storm continues to update. Those storms continue to move to the north at about 25 to 35 miles an hour. And again, that's strong enough that it's producing some strong, damaging winds, heavy downpours, and a lot of lightning, as I mentioned as well. So again, we want to watch this closely as we take that off for just a second and give you an idea once again as we reset it with the lightning strikes. And again, those heavy downpours continue near just to the north of Calhoun Falls is where we're seeing most of the heavy rain, the heavy activity right now. And this storm system continues to track to the north at about 35 miles an hour. You see it just updated. Calhoun Falls has now been taken out of the tornado warning box, but again, you're still getting some very strong thunderstorms. So again, the rotation is coming down, as we mentioned, as that box has been allowed to shrink just a little bit. But this still goes until 8 o'clock tonight, including Abbeville County in South Carolina. So we want you to be aware of that. It does not include Greenwood County, but again, it's all Abbeville at this point, just to the south of Anderson, just to the south of Iva, as you can see there. And again, we continue to track this and watch this very closely, because I think it's the cell right there in the middle, that dark area that you see. This is the most likely place that we're seeing those very strong winds, those heavy downpours. We go in a little bit closer, a few more of those neighborhoods to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And here we go, Highway 71. If you live on Highway 71, if you have friends or family that travel this, make sure you're contacting them. Let them know, don't travel on this road at this time. Hannah Drive, these areas are all areas impacted by this. As we take a look at Michael Place Road, Monterey Road as well. And again, these are the areas that you want to avoid, because as we're talking about this storm, as it continues to produce some heavy rain and heavy downpours and strong gusty winds, strong damaging winds, I should say, this is what we're most concerned about as we look at these areas. And again, as we put our radar on and give you an idea of the vorticity, again, not very fast moving. That's good news right there, but we are seeing those winds on the outside of that are a little bit stronger at this point. To give you an idea of what the storm looks like, the interior of that storm, this is where we're talking about 25-mile-an-hour winds right in the interior of that storm, as we're taking a look at this tornado warning that goes for another 15 minutes or so in northern parts of Abbeville County. So this is something we want to be very aware of as we give you the wider perspective. We're going to take the warning box off for just a second so that you can get an idea, a little better perspective of what we're talking about with this storm. You see Abbeville right there. This is our storm center. And again, as we put in our radar to give you a sense of where the heavy rain continues to come down with the storm, we're watching as that moves just to the north of Calhoun Falls. I would say it's probably no more than about 5 miles north of Calhoun Falls, but again, this is Highway 71 heading towards Abbeville that we're watching as that storm continues to move to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. And again, putting that warning box back up for you with the lightning strikes as well, you can see that there's a very concentrated area of thunderstorm activity with the lightning that's being produced from this as it moves out of Calhoun Falls. But again, this is only the leading edge. We have another line of storms moving out of Georgia. That line, I think, what works in our favor is that this is actually moving over the same areas. And as we're talking about rainfall totals, and we were talking about the potential for flood concerns in parts of western North Carolina, anywhere that you're getting storms like this that are producing heavy amounts of rain in a short amount of time, we are going to have flood concerns. This is going to be one of those issues as well. As we take a look at the winds, we take a look at all the storm activity with the storm, but as we take the lightning strikes off and take a quick look at our rainfall total over the last 3 hours in this area, look at these totals. Look at the amount of rain that this storm has put down in Calhoun Falls. Over 3 inches of rain in about a 10 or 15, 20-minute time period. So heavy rain through parts of Calhoun Falls, moving out of parts of Elbert County, Georgia. Southern parts of Elbert County, Georgia, over 2.5 inches of rain in those spots as well. And right along that edge, right above that, about 1 inch of rain. So all of this, again, continues to move and track to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. And that is a big concern for us as we're talking the flood potential with these storms. So a lot of times we're talking about tornadoes. Obviously, you're most concerned about the wind speeds and the damaging winds associated with it, but it's more than that when we're talking thunderstorms, especially in the spring season. You get these warm atmospheric conditions where there's a lot of lift, there's a lot of instability. Hail is going to be an issue, strong gusty winds, as well as lightning. And again, I just mentioned hail. Let's see if we're seeing any reports of hail from the storm system at the moment. And yes, we are seeing some reports that we're getting some hail damage possibility as a possibility in areas like Calhoun Falls and just to the north where that storm system is right now. And again, when you're talking storms and we showed you the cross section of the storm that's over 30,000 feet, anything that high has a lot of uplift. That means it's going to produce some strong uplift and hold up some very large hailstones. And again, that coming back down to the ground, even though our temperatures are in the 70s, well above freezing, those are still probably making it to the ground as at least pea-sized, quarter-sized hail in a lot of these places. And unfortunately, that's going to be damaging hail as well. Maybe the cars, if you have cars that are outdoors at this point, that might be an issue if they're not inside in a garage or anything like that. So again, strong gusty winds, a lot of lightning, and hail all associated with this storm system. As we put the lightning strikes back on there, we are seeing that those are concentrated, but they are coming down just a little bit as far as the number of lightning strikes that we are recording at this point. And again, let's give you a wider perspective to reset it for you that we are watching and tracking a tornado warning for Abbeville County that was issued about 15-20 minutes ago, which includes a storm moving out of Calhoun Falls, northern parts of Abbeville County, just to the north of Abbeville, but heading towards areas like due west. I want you to be very aware. And again, we're almost running into this wall of clouds that we're thinking may be the thing that kind of puts a little bit of a damper on this storm system, but we are looking at a base of clouds that really kind of starts near Anderson, sweeps through Anderson County and into Lawrence. So as this is moving into more stable air, the likelihood that this is able to continue is going to be very low, which is why it only goes to 8 o'clock. But this is something that we're watching, because if this area of storms is able to break through an area that may see a little less cloud cover, say a little bit of clearing and a little more heat, a little more instability, this may be just enough to trigger a few more of those stronger thunderstorms at the very least, if not a tornado warning. But again, this tornado warning was issued because there was some reports, there was a notification of rotation picked up by the Doppler radar from the National Weather Service that this storm was producing some rotation in the mid to lower levels. So it may actually be a tornado that's moving through the area. So that's why the warning was issued, because those conditions look like they favor that circulation being picked up by the radar. Of course, with the radar being advanced as it is, we were able to see that that storm continues to be the issue in many spots as it moves towards the north at about, again, 30 to 35 miles an hour. And again, the center of circulation just to the north of Calhoun Falls as the storm continues to move to the north, continues to show some signs of rotation as well. And again, as we zoom in, go a little bit closer to the storm, give you a better idea of what we're talking about and where the storm is itself. Most of that activity, again, stays to the west of Abbeville. So Abbeville, you're not particularly seeing it, but you're on the outer edge of this, and I would not be surprised if you're getting some of those strong gusty winds as well. Lightning strikes are obviously still within the range of the Abbeville area, so if you're outside, or if you have family or friends that are outdoors, maybe some spring events going on, make sure you're contacting them. Make sure they know that they need to be moving indoors, away from windows, away from doors, and again, away from the outside, because this becomes a big issue as we're talking thunderstorms, and even thunderstorms. We're just talking lightning. Those can be extremely dangerous, obviously, but anytime we have the potential for strong gusty winds or rotating winds with a potential tornado, this is where you really want to limit your time outdoors and really make sure that you're moving inside, taking those precautions. As we often talk about the fact that you need to have a plan in place, you need to have a way to get contacted, you need to have a way to get your notifications. This is what we're talking about, because this has been a day that we've been talking about the rain and the clouds and the cool temperatures, but you get this one little pop of dry weather, you get an isolated cell, and this is where you could get into the idea of this, where we could get into an isolated tornado or tornadic type activity in some spots. Give you a quick look again. We want to check in on those winds. There's still some pretty strong gusty winds, 34, 35 mile an hour winds associated with this storm. And again, I do believe that center of circulation is just to the north of Calhoun Falls, just to the north and west of Warrenton. So again, if you're watching us in Abbeville County, we're watching this area right here, but the entire system, the entire area continues to be a thunderstorm producer. So this continues to be something that we want to pay close attention to. We want you to be aware of it, and we want you to make sure that you are taking the proper precautions, because again, anytime a tornado warning is issued, whether or not a tornado makes it to the ground or not, there's still going to be some very strong winds with it. There's going to be the potential for some damage, for some hail as well with those storms. And again, just an absolute massive collection of lightning strikes in a very small area, very compact area, but this is an area where we're seeing that lightning really kick in across parts of Abbeville County. And again, to give you an update, we're going to zoom out just a little bit to give you a little wider perspective of what we're talking about. And again, sometimes you think tornadoes, we think wide, long, big areas, but no, this is just one little spot in Abbeville County. But as that line of thunderstorms has been able to tap into that moisture that's coming in out of the south, a little bit of daylight, a little bit of sunlight, and you can see as those storms really kind of work their way out of Greenwood, kind of cutting that off just a little bit. So we're starting to see a little bit of choking down of those storms, as you will, but we are still looking at a line of storms moving through northern Abbeville County, heading towards due west. That's producing a lot of lightning, some strong gusty winds, and some heavy downpours at this time. And again, more to come from the south. The good news is that the storms behind that don't seem to be quite as strong or quite as active, but that is the line that we want to watch, and that's an area that we want to keep a close eye on over the next hour or so, because until we get towards sunset, which is about 30 minutes from now, we still have that potential for that instability, just enough lift in the atmosphere to trigger some of these stronger storms to work their way through the area. And again, some of those storms that could be a big issue. Good. We're just getting information in, thank you so much, Gordon, that the rotation is broad enough that they will allow this to expire at 8 o'clock. But again, this has been something that we've been watching, and we've kind of walked you through the idea that, yes, we're watching those close areas of rotation, those pixels, if you will, gate-to-gate sure is what it's called, but we're watching these pixels of red and green. If they're close together, that means winds going towards the radar, winds coming away from the radar, and anytime those are close, that means there's some rotation in the atmosphere. But again, this is a very strong thunderstorm, strong gusty winds, even though the rotation is winding down, even though this is a system that is not producing that widespread rotation or those tightly bound rotational areas, we are still looking at a storm that I think is probably packing quite a bit of a wallop as we talk about rainfall amounts as well as strong gusty winds. And again, I want to update those winds for you for just a second, give you an idea of what we're talking about with this system. And again, when you're talking about a storm system, it doesn't really matter as much if you have rotation, because as we've seen, and we've had several reports of straight line wind damage, that you don't have to have rotation from a tornado to get trees pushed down or to get limbs broken or to have things being flown around in your yard. But this is what we're talking about. And again, as we're tracking this rotation, as we're tracking these strong gusty winds, 15, 20, 25 mile an hour winds on the backside of that near Calhoun Falls, those winds have died down to about 10 or 11 miles an hour. That's good news. We like to see that. That's very good news as we take a look at the winds within the storm. That's what our storm relative vorticity is. This gives us an idea of if we're seeing any rotation within that storm. And the good news is that we're not seeing rotation within the storm, but we are still seeing some winds that are pretty gusty at this point. And these are, again, 27, 28 mile an hour winds that could still cause some damage. So again, if you're watching us in Abbeville County, Abbeville, you're in great shape right now, but you're still seeing that rain just on your doorstep and heavy downpours as well. Clear that out for you, give you a little bit of perspective of what we're talking about to widen it out for you. And again, the tornado warning continues to stay in effect until the top of the hour, so another 3 to 5 minutes as we're watching this. But again, if you're watching us in Anderson, don't let your guard down, because again, even if you're not getting the tornado, and again, the rotation has kind of widened out, a very broad rotation, not really that concentrated area, we're still talking about a stronger thunderstorm. We're talking about a storm that produces some strong gusty winds. We're talking about a storm that has a lot of lightning. And as you take a closer look at this, all the way up towards Williamston, we're seeing some lightning strikes away from that center of where those storms are. If you're watching us in Gray Court, you want to be aware of that. If you're watching us in Simpsonville, all of this is moving to the north, again, at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. So as that happens, as we get that push of the storm, as it kind of moves to the north, this continues to be a rainmaker and a strong thunderstorm. Even though it's going to be allowed to expire as a tornado warning, this is an area that we want to pay very close attention to, because again, this is unstable air that it's in right now. The idea is that it's moving into more stable conditions where we had more cloud cover, more rain around. Well, this is still going to be a rainmaker. This is going to be some heavy downpours that will track through the Anderson area, through Williamston, southern parts of Greenville County, as we're talking Simpsonville, Lawrence County towards Gray Court. Don't let your guard down. Even Greenville, on the wider perspective, is kind of in on this as well. So more of that is heading to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Again, as we put this into motion for you to show you that we've been watching this line, and we kind of circled that area earlier in the shows. We're saying that this is an area that has that potential to see some showers, some rainfall as it moves in from Georgia. Very warm, very humid air to our south, and it's moving into an atmosphere that I showed you a few minutes ago, had a little bit of sunlight, had a little bit of daylight, and that was just enough to produce those stronger thunderstorms rolling through the area. So again, we want to watch this area very closely as it continues to wind down just a bit, but it's still a very strong thunderstorm as it moves through parts of Abbeville County. And again, give you a little bit of a wider perspective, not a lot of these sails, but this has been the case over the last 24 hours, that you get this area of showers and storms that kind of acts as a blanket, kind of cools down the atmosphere. But on the backside of that, and we were showing you this a little bit earlier, we were seeing some pockets of clear air. We were seeing just that break in the clouds that was allowing just enough heating in the atmosphere that we were getting these little pops of thunderstorms that developed, and that has been the case with this entire line as it moves up from Georgia. So we want to keep a close eye on this through the evening hours. Again, as I said, this is moving into more stable air behind that, so we're not as concerned about the threat for tornadoes throughout the rest of the evening. But this is a good example of what we're talking about as we zoom in and show you small areas that get these isolated tornadoes that pop up, that can pop up, and maybe do produce a tornado or some rotation with those storm systems. So again, this is the area that we're watching. Again, a storm that's moving to the north at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. As that continues to track to the north, we're watching this very closely. We want to keep an eye on this, and we want to make sure that you're aware that as this moves at about 25 to 30 miles an hour, areas near due west, it's heading in your direction. And again, over the next hour or so, it's moving just to the south of Anderson, moving towards due west at about 8:15. And again, at the top of the hour, this will be allowed to expire as a tornado warning. But something that we will do is whenever we have tornado warnings, we're going to go on air, we're going to stay on air, walk you through them as they occur, as they happen, to keep you informed and to keep you aware of what's going on with these